Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Action Comics issue 1087 by Mark Waid, Skylar Partridge, and Ivan Placencia. The summer of Superman continues here in Action Comics as Mark Waid ventures into the Expo of Tomorrow, where Mayor Perry White has asked Superman and Supergirl to provide an exhibit for the show, so Superman thought tech from the actual future would be appropriate, showcasing some Legion flight rings for the kids to take joyrides on around the Sundome in. Perry finally showing up post-election win here is great though, as I feel we've been missing some great stories with him now as mayor. Kind of felt like they were positioning him to take a big part in these Superman books. You know, they made a big point of him going up for election, passing the torch to Lois, to the editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet, and just setting him up in general as someone who's going to look after the city, but nothing was really ever done with it, or hasn't been done with it so far. And I like that Waid is finally bringing him back here, even if it's just for a little bit. I'll take any little bit I can get of this story, and hopefully we actually get to see a bit more of him, because it was just right for like some really cool stories set in Metropolis and set in the political climate of Metropolis, which is something we don't really get to see a lot of when you compare it to other cities like Gotham, where it feels like every other issue of Batman has something to do with the mayor or like some type of government office in Gotham. Superman is happy that Perry thought to bring the show back. Finding the expo is pretty neat, as he remembers going as a young boy. Superman goes to look around, turning back into Clark Kent so he can be a little bit more inconspicuous. Clark takes in the sights and sounds of the expo, visiting the various pavilions as he remembers how nothing he's experienced in his long and storied life has made a bigger impression on him than his first visit to the Expo of Tomorrow. He thinks about the date, June 18th, which was the anniversary of the day Ma and Pa Kent found him in the field, marking it as his birthday. We then head into the past as the 15-year-old Clark Kent literally drags his parents onto a bus, complaining they are going to miss it if they don't hurry, since he can't miss the future cars and the astronomy exhibits of the Expo of Tomorrow in Metropolis. I thoroughly enjoy the enthusiasm of the young Clark here, his need and want to learn about science and technology of the world. Hints at his Kryptonian background, because his parents on Krypton were scientists, and I like that that's Mark Waid showcasing he's still got that connection to his Kryptonian heritage, that need and want for science and technology and learning how it all works. Waid also couples that with, the classic young teenage frustration. Clark doesn't really have a lot of patience, he has to kind of do things now and in the moment, and I like that that's kind of comes through here with him literally dragging his parents onto the bus and, come on, we gotta go, and they could have flown there, because he could have taken them and flown them to Metropolis so they could get there sooner and see all the pavilions, but I like that Ma and Pa Kent are there to kind of ground him quite literally and make him feel like, oh no, he needs patience, we need to teach him these patience because he's going to need that when he's a bit older. We haven't seen a young Clark in a while either, so it's really great to see him come back in such a wholesome, fun way as well. As they get on the bus, Martha hopes that Clark hasn't flown off to see the expo before their family trip, warning Clark they know all about how he gets around town by flying. She also finds he's wearing his costume under his shirt, something she chides him for since that was meant to be for later. Clark's reasonings for bringing it are there's going to be a lot of crime in Metropolis probably, and he just wants to help out where he can. Jonathan takes over from Martha, and we get a just fantastic father-son moment here where Pa tells Clark that they understand he wants to help people out, but they need to be very careful because they have the biggest secret in the world on their fingertips here, and they need to be ready for what happens when that big secret finally gets revealed to the world. They have to have all of their bases covered. This is something I never really thought about, but makes total sense. Ma and Pa being part of Clark's coming out as Superman, or in this case Superboy, and getting ready for it, preparing for what might happen when their son takes the world stage. The Kents are very supportive of Clark and his need for wanting to be a hero, but also wanting to be safe in doing so he doesn't draw any unnecessary attention from the wrong people. And I'm looking forward to Wade following this arc through his run here, filling in those gaps in Clark's history and how he became Superman. It's also kind of reframing what we've seen of his origin, because up until now they've kind of played fast and loose with what his origin actually is. Some comics use the secret origin, the Jeff Johns book origin for him, like a loose sort of following of that. Others use kind of a combination of different things. He kind of turned up in Metropolis, but I like here Wade is actually setting in stone like what his origin will be, which would be started with Superboy back like during the Golden Age. So it's really cool that we're actually getting that Superboy Adventure Time making a comeback here, and that just opens a wealth of possibilities for storylines as well, in terms of like we can go back and have books that explore his time as Superboy more now that is now actually canon again. As the bus drives on, Pa tells Clark to go ahead and look at the city, so he uses his telescopic vision to see into Metropolis. Remembering how these powers came to him when he was 6 and Ma and Pa helped train him so he could focus it, helping him remember just how far Smallville is from everything awesome. Eventually, Clark gets to the expo, reminded to his parents to walk and take things very slow, really just so he doesn't hurt anyone in his excitedness. And they decide to kick things off with a history lesson about the world's heroes. So it's no secret that Wade really loves the old school heroes like the JSA, who he gets to explore just a little bit here, and it's quite fantastic as it also is like filling in the gaps of Clark's past, but it's also filling in the gaps of the DC's history, which I guess will be further expanded upon in his upcoming History of the DCU book, which is coming very soon. We get stuff like the All-Star Squadron, Law's Legionnaires, and the JSA, and how Jonathan loved all of these heroes because these are Jonathan's heroes. These are the people who were heroes when he was a child. And I like that he's such a nerd at all of this, that he's like training his son on like trivia of these heroes about like how the Green Lantern defeated Solomon Grundy and how Flash did this and that, and just like really fun stuff that we never have seemingly gotten before. I can't think of the last time that they made like Jonathan Kent a fan of all of these heroes, or like a bit of a fanboy for all of these heroes that were around when he was a child. And I like that he's passing that on to his son. And then we've also seen that as well, where Wade has had a chance to write Superman teaming up with the JSA in a recent World's Finest book. So we get to see that sort of fanboyism kind of follow through, where like these are the heroes that inspired him to also become a hero, and he knows everything about them and all their saves and all their missions and adventures, and it's just really fun. It kind of brings the universe closer together. And I also like that it remembers that Metropolis had a bunch of heroes like Alan Scott in its city before Superman appeared. Superman wasn't the first hero in Metropolis. Wade also begins sowing the seeds for, I guess, what will be the plot of this book, or like one of the little like mini plots in this series, which is he keeps bringing up this device that's called the quote-unquote mystery device, like that's literally its name in the pavilion. We see it at the beginning of the issue in the present day stuff, and we see it again here in the flashback, and it's not outrightly said what it is, or like it's not really like in your face. Is very subtle, but I have to assume that that's going to come back in some place. You don't name something the mystery device and then not bring it back. That's like some mystery box shit, you know, Chekhov's mystery device, and that's definitely coming back in some way. The kids continue to enjoy the sights and sounds of the expo until there is a giant explosion heralding the arrival of Rays, who attacks the crowd as he believes the future isn't the one the expo makes it out to be. The future is actually dark and deadly. With permission from Jonathan, Clark changes and saves a group of people from Razor's assaults. I always love a good proto costume for a hero, you know, their early days year one costumes, you know, a bat suit that doesn't actually have any of the bat features on it yet, you know, it's just like a ninja costume, or like we saw in Flash year one where it's like a t-shirt and he's wearing like a helmet and crash pads and stuff like that. And Clark gets his own here, which is cool because Superboy's costume usually is just a smaller version of his, you know, adult costume. But I like here he's wearing, you know, a pair of swimming trunks. He's got the cape and the shirt, which will eventually become part of his costume, but he's got like a leather belt. He's got a pair of red Converses, and it just makes for a really great look. And the way Skylar Partridge draws it on him, and how it feels a little ill-fitting, where it looks like it's a little too tight for him, and he's like because he's a growing boy, he's kind of growing out of it as he's wearing it almost. But it's a great look. It's, you know, just screams classic Superman while also being like a proto. He's still trying to figure out what his look is going to be costume. Clark confronts Rays, demanding he surrender before more people get hurt, but the villain hurls a stone at him with such force it pushes Clark back, even causing him to bleed. Now this is the first time Clark has experienced this, something that can actively hurt him, and he's a little surprised by it, so much so that Rays takes advantage of the situation and tosses Clark around with his telekinetic powers, wondering if Clark is even from this world thanks to his powers, and he is eager what they will find when they carve him open, referencing some unseen force, possibly his bosses. Wade does some really cool things here that a lot of writers gloss over. This is a very young Clark who's never been in a proper fight yet. He's saved some people, but he's never actually fought someone, let alone someone who has powers. And while Clark wants to stand up for himself and fight back, he doesn't actually know how much he can hit Rays without killing him. He isn't sure how strong this guy is. It's an interesting thing to mull over. How does he figure out how much force to use per bad guy? Because everyone's going to be different. You know, what he hits, you know, Bizarro with, he can't hit, you know, Bloodsport with, or, you know, he can't hit Prankster with the same force he hits General Zod with. So I like that he's still trying to figure that out. And also there's a very Superman moment here where he doesn't want to hurt the guy. He just wants to de-escalate the situation. So he doesn't want to just lash out and, you know, hurt him too much. He still wants this guy to be able to repent for what he has done. But because he had that bit of hesitation, it cost him though, as Rays doesn't have a problem with any of that and just beats Clark mercilessly, overwhelming him and pushing him into a nearby stall. On top of that, Clark begins hearing all of the people in trouble around the expo calling for help, and it begins to overwhelm him. It's thanks to Jonathan that he's able to focus as he listens to his father's voice, and it calms him down, remembering the lessons his parents taught him about handling his powers. Clark springs into action, saving a woman from some of Rays' energy blasts before using his super speed to whip him up into a tornado, unbalancing the villain and causing him to fall over. I always like when Superman uses his powers for more than just, you know, delivering a strong punch or a blast of heat vision. Like here, he's using the actual elements, you know, air and wind, as his powers, to his benefit, and he stops the villain without actually laying a single finger on him or actually hurting him in any way. With Rays unbalanced, Superman grabs him, removing the helmet which was giving him his powers. He interrogates the villain, asking who this quote-unquote we he kept talking about is and who his bosses are, but the villain is so afraid that he faints. Despite the threat being dealt with, Clark has a few other problems as a crowd begins to gather around him, wanting pictures and to know who he is. Not ready for a full reveal just yet, Clark speeds off, changing in an unseen location before returning to the expo to find Ma and Pa okay. His parents though aren't too concerned with their own well-being, since now Clark's secret is out of the bag and out there in the world, meaning people have seen him and they aren't ready for what happens next. As I said at the top of the review, I really do like that we're going back to the Superboy origins instead of sticking with the Jeff Johns secret origin one, where he kind of reveals himself a lot later on in life. I think it helps relate us more to the character if we follow him from his early days. We get to see him grow up and mature and learn all of these lessons that will eventually shape him into becoming Superman, and it's something we haven't seen in a very long while. We haven't had an actual origin story for Clark's early days in a very long time. Usually people skip over that until he's in Metropolis and, you know, they do the whole Christopher Reeve thing, you know, where he saves Lois and everything, and that's where his reveal comes from. So I like that we're kind of going back further and doing the reveal a lot earlier. Clark's little debut didn't just gain the attention of those at the expo or in the Metropolis news cycle, but also a very shadowy organization who ordered General Sam Lane to begin to look into who this mysterious Boy of Steel is. So this is a really interesting development, since, as I said, we usually get the secret origin story, you know, the Jeff Johns one, that involves Sam Lane as well. He's involved in that, and that's where Metallo comes from in that story. With Sam getting involved and trying to stop Superman, trying to figure out who this alien threat is. And I like that they're doing that here, but it looks like it's like completely different. Like he's working for this weird shadowy cult organization. They seemingly got him, I don't know whether it's in mind control or whether he's actually working for these guys, but that's really cool. I like that change where he's getting involved in the story a lot earlier on than he usually would. I wonder if that means Lois will be getting involved in the story a lot earlier on as well, or whether we'll see what Lois is doing at this point, because I imagine she, around the same age as Clark, she'll be still in high school. So like, are we going to get stories with Lois as well and what she's up to? That would be really interesting as well, seeing the origin of Lois Lane alongside Clark Kent. The reveals don't stop there though, as in the final page we actually learn there is someone else who's very upset that this mysterious red and blue blur has revealed itself, as they believe that this boy was out of control and he wasn't protecting any of the people at the expo, and they find that unacceptable. And it's revealed that this person has powers as well and decides to go and stop this Superboy. Now I have no idea who this could be. I think it's a little bit too early for Zod, though that would be an interesting thing where Zod's been on Earth as well, and Superman gets to fight him when he's Superboy. That would be quite interesting. I don't think it is. I think it's going to be a new character or a very, very old character, because this is Mark Waid we're talking about. This is the guy who digs up very obscure characters and makes them a center point in a lot of his stories, so I wouldn't put that past him here. But it's a fun little tease for what's to come. And it also means, I guess, Superboy will be fighting someone who's a bit more on his level through this story. Action Comics issue 1087 begins Mark Waid's updating of Superman's origin story and early days as a hero, exploring Clark's drive to be a hero and how his parents factor into his choice to become the Man of Steel. Couple that with Mark Waid teasing a fun mystery involving classic Superman characters like Sam Lane and mysterious superpowered beings who are intent on stopping Superboy, you've got the making for a fun adventure over the next few issues of Action Comics. I'm going to give this issue a 9 out of 10.